Hey, welcome to Pop Culture Maniacs podcast. This time we are going to be talking about James Bond, or particularly the future of James Bond. As usual, I'm joined by Jean, who our TV editor. Hi, Jean.
Hello.
And we got a special guest, actor slash YouTuber Duncan Casey. Some of you may know from Valverde Meet Broadcasting.
Hello. Hello.
Glad you can join us. It's nice to have guests.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, cool. So since Duncan, you're our guest, I think you should have the honour of talking about your history of Bond series first.
Oh, my history with the Bond series. That's an interesting one. I have lots of. I mean, I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. I have sort of family connections to the Bond films, in sort of weird tangential kind of ways. Without wishing. I'm from the Bahamas originally. That's where I was born. My brother was born there too, and my grandfather was an architect there, and he was commissioned to do some work for Kevin McClory. The man responsible for a lot of the problems that the Bond series has had, and of course, Never Say Never Again. He didn't pay my grandfather. My grandfather ended up suing him, and in the process of doing that, became firm friends with him, which is a bit weird. But it's the Bahamas. So there you go. So that's one connection I have. I've also my grandmother was at Cambridge with Edith Weiss, who's Rachel Weisz's mum. So I used to sort of know them very roughly, very casually, shall we say, when I was a kid. So there's a bit of a weird, she's obviously married to Daniel Craig, so that's a bit of a weird one. And then I also did do a bit of work on Skyfall back in the day. I did 5 days on that as a kind of walk-on part, but that isn't in the film. So there you go. But that's my, and then and I love the films, of course. So my dad tried to introduce me to them probably a bit too young, because I thought they were all about golf or whatever, and found them quite boring. And then I think GoldenEye was the first one I saw where I was really protesting it. My dad insisted we put it on. It just come out, I think, and I would have been 11, I think, and my eyes were on stalks the whole way through, and I thought it was amazing. And there you go. So that's it.
Cool.
I think.
Brilliant.
In a massive nutshell.
Jean, you've got a very different history to the Bond series, haven't you?
I do. I have only seen 3 James Bond movies. I saw, what was it? Tomorrow Never Dies back when I was about 11, and hated everything about it and thought this is a horrible type of movie. I don't know why people seem to like James Bond, and then wrote off everything and vowed never to watch it again. But then once Daniel Craig took over the part, I watched Casino Royale, really enjoyed it. And then the only other one I've seen is Skyfall. So I'm not very versed in the intricacies of James Bond outside of your basic pop culture knowledge of who's played James Bond and all of that.
Yep. So, and that's partly why I wanted you on the podcast, because you can give us that sort of outsider perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I may as well go for my bit, and I'm probably right in the middle, because Bond fan since I was quite young. I think because my family are all into different things, so it sort of ended up Bond being quite a unifier for all us. And quick rundown. So first one I remember seeing is Live and Let Die. Had GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies on video. The World's Not Enough first DVD. First film I saw at the cinema was Die Another Day. First Blu-ray Skyfall.
That's Die Another Day was your first in the cinema.
Yes, I know.
That's rough, man.
No.
That's rough.
Yeah, so yeah, so the Two Towers and Harry Potter were the better options at the cinema at the time. Anyway, so let's get cracking. So as I say, we'll be talking about the future of Bond, but I think we have to address the legacy of Daniel Craig's era. So, Jean, obviously, since your only real experience is with Daniel Craig, perhaps your foot, because obviously that's probably your base of what the Bond series is as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely one of the reasons why I was not a fan after watching Pierce Brosnan take on Bond was because of Pierce Brosnan. So I was bound to enjoy Daniel Craig more, but I've really liked his portrayal, and I know there are people out there who don't. But to me, he's actually created some characterization with the character, and I've enjoyed watching him, give it a go. And as someone who really wasn't particularly familiar with Daniel Craig at all prior to him taking on the role of Bond, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed his run, and I'm sure someday I'll finish watching all the other movies that he did in the James Bond run. But until it's streaming somewhere where I can catch it, I mean, I definitely plan to watch No Time to Die when it comes out. So I'm a fan.
Yeah. I was going to say, once the Amazon Prime deal's all sorted out, you can be watching them all there.
Yeah, then I'll catch up. I'll get this hole in my my pop culture history cleared up.
Yeah. And obviously, Duncan, your thoughts on it, on Daniel Craig era?
On Daniel Craig, yeah, I mean, look, he was the curveball. I remember at the time he was cast, I think Clive Owen was probably my pick of people, but then, I was, what was I, 22, 21, 22? I mean, I think he's done a phenomenal job. I think he's a fantastic actor. He's also had the rare beauty, or the rare opportunity to start over, because no one's ever been able to do that with it before. And he's also had the I think he's had some of the best scripts. I think he's had some of the best opportunities for growth, because I think prior to that it was fairly episodic, and it wasn't possible. Bond was the immovable object, not the person you went on a necessarily went on an emotional arc with. And so for good reason, and I understand the reasoning behind that. And there were emotional arcs, but generally speaking, he starts off the film in bed with a lady and ends the film in bed with a lady, and it's kind of like, well, that's not, and kills people, and it's kind of, and I understand, like on a Majesty's Secret Service, and there are exceptions, but generally speaking, we were never given a full character arc. And I think there's been I wouldn't say missteps, but I do think there have been things where it's like like Casino Royale felt like there's been this sort of desire to make it, now he's the James Bond. Now he's the, it's like Quantum of Solace. No, wait a second. Now he's James Bond. And so there's been a bit of that, and but generally speaking, I think it's been absolutely fantastic. It's been really exciting to see them do something new with it while still, keeping the formula fresh. I mean, I think that's what draws people to it a lot of the time. Is yes, we want the formula of a Bond film, but we want it reimagined. And so I think they've done a fantastic job. I think he's done a fantastic job. I think all round, generally speaking, it's very hard to sustain something like this for this long. And I think it's great. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front. I would say with Daniel Craig's era, it does seem to be one of highs and lows, because you could Casino Royale and Skyfall, I think a lot of people would say are the best two films in the series as a whole, whilst Quantum of Solace and Spectre not so well regarded. I think because Quantum of Solace, it tried a bit too hard to be more like a Bourne film, whilst Spectre, I think the big kicker was the big kicker involving Spectre was the reveal of who Blofeld really was. It's so his
brother, adopted. Yeah, well, and then also the sort of the motivation for everything that happened to James Bond till that point was petty jealousy.
I know.
Like, really? You started an evil empire and took over the world just to mess with your old brother? Or your adopted brother, really? I mean, we know why that, obviously, they were sort of grooming. Well, Quantum was supposed to be the replacement for Spectre, and then of course, once they started getting the rights back, I understand the sort of commercial reasons behind all that, and I have no problem with the people involved. Like I think Christoph Waltz is fantastic, and I do have love for Spectre, but it is a I understand the criticisms of it. I find it a sort of, I still enjoy watching it, but I do understand, like, that's where it does fall, it starts to fray a little bit, which is because Austin Powers did it, for goodness sake. So
yeah, and that's what I think a lot of critics have said at the time. I was going to say, thinking Well, thank God James Bond was a spy for MI6. What would have happened if he was a merchant banker or the sort of head of current affairs at the BBC? Ruined, ruined Bond's life by bringing about world peace. Yeah. And shall we say, with No Time to Die being obviously the final film, well, supposedly the final film in the Craig era, that was a film that did seem to be cursed, because he obviously had like Daniel Boyle was set to direct, then he fell out with the producers. I think the rumors being that he wanted to kill off Bond, which was a big no-no. And obviously during filming, Daniel Craig breaking his leg, and obviously the pandemic keeping postponing the release. So I think as a Bond film, as a Bond fan, you go in optimistic, and trailers do look very promising.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Danny Boyle thing, I mean, I think the people, I mean, that business about he got kicked off because he wanted to kill James Bond, and it's like, you don't get as far as hiring the man if you don't like his vision for it. I think something else happened there, and it is what it is. Creative differences is a big, get out clause for a lot of people, and I understand, like, it happens. But yes, it certainly seems to have been pushed back and back and back. But hey, look, it's Cary Fukunaga. He's a great director. It's got a great cast. It looks fantastic, certainly from the trailers. So I'm sure it's going to be good.
Yeah. Obviously, like the theories on what could happen. Obviously, like some people speculating whether Rami Malek's character is going to be Dr. No. I personally hope he isn't actually Dr. No. I wouldn't mind if they use influences from the novels, but I think that's just going back if they bring in characters like that again.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of there's been lots of screenshots of people saying, look, there's lots of the design of his kind of layer.
Yeah,
it does seem very much. There's a very Ken Adams, like the scene from from Dr. No where Dent picks up the tarantula and stuff. There's a shot of Rami Malek sat in a room exactly like that. And he looks like Dr. No. I mean, but we've seen some shots of his hands, and he doesn't apparently have metal hands. But then that could be one of those James Bond chopped them off, and then at the end he's got metal hands. I mean, I don't know. They have precedents for it, don't they? They have precedents for doing this kind of thing. But it would be a bit weird for the takeaway from Spectre to be, that thing we did that no one seems to like. Let's do that again. So. Yeah.
I think for me, one of the more interesting aspects is what's her name?
Léa Seydoux.
Yeah, let's do Lynch, isn't it? The woman who's meant to be the new 007.
Oh, Lashana Lynch.
Lashana Lynch. Yes.
Lynch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Gene. Yeah, because obviously there was that. Basically, with anything on the internet, there's always a backlash if there's anything like women or race or anything mentioned. So let's just park that to one side. But it will be interesting to see what her role will be in this film.
Agreed. Yes, I think Jean should answer that one though. Go, Jean.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, that's one of the main reasons why I'm interested in seeing the film. I've enjoyed her other work, and from what I've gathered, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's work on the story seems to be more around her character and the development of her. So I'm very intrigued to see what all of that does within the story itself.
Actually, I was going to say, it brings a good point, because thinking of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, because she was brought in because of her work on Killing Eve as well.
Yes, it was a great series. I think the backlash was slightly misfounded in terms of, I understand where it came from, but there is precedence. There's precedence in the books for him losing his number, and his 00 number, and it being assigned to someone else. I think there's even a line where he says it's just a number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And if anything, it might end up helping disprove the code name theory that keeps popping up.
Please God, yes.
Yeah. Well, Obviously, there's final top part on No Time to Die is what do you think its predictions at the box office will be?
Are you asking me or Gene?
Both of you.
Gene, you go first.
I'm assuming it's going to do really well. They just pushed back Dune, so it doesn't compete against it. So I think I mean, people are starved for a movie. So as long as COVID stays kind of plateaued where it's at, I think it's going to do great numbers.
I hope so. I really do. I think it's my understanding, because looking at the market at the moment with what's out, Fast and Furious 9 has came out last week.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's done gangbusters in terms relative to everything else, but it's still not. I don't know that it's returning numbers that you would obviously expect during quote unquote normal times. I don't know. We've just obviously had an announcement today in the UK anyway that the plan certainly seems to be by the 19th of July to return everything to normal pretty much as possible. If that continues and we don't have any issues, then hopefully by then, yeah, it should. And it is the big one, isn't it? It was the canary in the coal mine for so long because of when it was due to be released. And
because I remember, like, particularly in the UK, a lot of cinema owners were like pretty desperate for it to come out last year, but obviously circumstances prevented it.
Indeed, yeah. Well, actually, Ellie, who does a lot of our social posting for Valverde, she works in the cinema, and bless her, she said they basically started to look at reopening mainly for No Time to Die back in November, and suddenly everyone had to stop and not do it.
Yeah. So obviously, I think with Craig era, because it obviously started off with being gritty and realistic, because it was made at that time when you had like the Bourne films, Batman Begins, and you were sort of on that forefront of that movement. And now by the end, it's action cinema has changed quite a lot. So you're thinking what would be the future direction for the Bond series? I personally think that no matter what, I think it is going to lighten up a little bit. I don't think it's going to be quite as dark, and I think they're going to inject a little more fun into the franchise again.
I think possibly. It's curious. I mean, I think what's tended to happen is a sort of pendulum swing throughout the franchises. Where it's gone too far one way, it's had to reel itself in and go swing back the other way. I don't think Casino Royale isn't devoid of humor. It's not. It's just, I think it's very earnest in terms of how it tells its story, and I think it's there's been a sort of mantle placed on the Daniel Craig films as being somewhat po-faced, which I think is a bit unfair. I don't think they are, but I do think that they struggle because of the type of tone they've set to then start playing with quips and one-liners and that kind of thing. So and frivolity, I think it's very difficult for them to straddle that line in a way. But I think that, I think possibly we'll go back that way. I don't know. I mean, people ask me this a lot, and I kind of have to say, well, I thank God I'm not making the decisions at Eon or anywhere else, because I wouldn't know what to. I mean, I know what I'd like to see as a fan, but in terms of what's going to make sense commercially and for the franchise and keeping the torch burning, I really don't know.
I was going to say, as you said, as a fan, and I've said this to Gene on other podcasts, if you put 5 Bond fans in a room, they'll probably tell you 5 different things of what they would want from the franchise.
We're infuriating, Gene. I mean, in case you haven't realised already, we're a bunch of spoilt little brats, really. But bearing in mind that this thing has been running. This is the longest running film franchise in history. We've had so many variations and iterations, and it's straddled decades and decades. I mean, what are we now? 2022. So next year it will be 60 years since it started. So it's like, we've gone from the swinging 60s to the whatever 20s, I guess. And so we're very spoiled, and that's the other thing as well. Like I as I've gotten older, I've kind of gone, do you know what? Wherever they go, I think it's going to be cool. I'm enjoying the ride, and having been on one of the Bond sets as well, I know what it's like. It's such a family atmosphere. No one pulls rank. No one's me. I mean, everyone. Ralph Fiennes, Judi Dench, Daniel Craig, Roy Kinnear, Sam Mendes, Roger Deakins, who I'm a huge fan of. We'll just chat to you. There was no pretense. There was none of that. It's lovely. It's wonderful, and I really, really, really hope that that they'll find a way to go through this. I don't. I think we've more than had our fill, if you like, at the trough of Bond. So, and it's one of those things you kind of go, well, like, look, if what they start serving up is something I don't like, I always have stuff I do like. It's always there. So,
yeah. Obviously, I think we're generally with Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, who both obviously produced the films. Whilst they might occasionally have the misstep, I think they do have the long-term franchise interests at heart.
okay.
And I think even when they do make a mistake, like something like Die Another Day, they realize their mistake and rectify it. And as you said, they swing sort of like on a match. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, I only just to say, sorry to interrupt, but I only just say, I mean, like Die Another Day is sort of considered a mistake in hindsight, but at the time it was the biggest grossing Bond film to date. And it's like you have to remember that. You have to remember it did do well for them. But obviously, yes, I get why people don't, why it's widely derided. But
I'll put it this way. I think they realized how hated it was by the fandom, and I think it wasn't for the long-term interest to keep Bond trying to be like a XXX knockoff.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I would say my personal vision for in the current climate is, I would say, obviously, yes, it probably will have a bit more humor and a bit more fun, but I still think for me, Bond should be still fairly grounded. We've got plenty of like Marvel, DC, or Fast and Furious for your ridiculous plots involving world domination, super weapons, or whatever, radical science.
But although they're success largely to James Bond, I mean the action film is pretty much indebted to the Bond series. And so I mean I take your point, because I think, and this was always a problem even back in the early noughties, it was like, what on earth do we do, because everything else is doing this and in some ways doing it better. So how on earth do we, we're just becoming a parody of ourselves without even doing anything,
Because obviously, Gene, since you're the non-Bond fan, I think probably what would you like to see from the Bond series post Craig era?
I mean, kind of what Duncan said, as long as it's a good story and it's interesting, I mean, people are going to go see it. Personally, I'd like to see, at the risk of being the woman on the podcast, I'd like to see like real female characters in the story. That was one of the things that really turned me off during the Pierce Brosnan Bond film, was just that, the women were disposable. And, I don't particularly want to go to a movie just to see things explode if there's not interesting characters for me to watch and to identify with. So I'd like to see a bit more diversity, a bit more additional characters added, and that sort of thing. Like, even making like some crazy, nasty female bad guy would be really fun to see as well.
Gene, I wish you'd seen The World Is Not Enough, because that has one of the best bad guys in it, and it's Sophie Marceau, who's incredible in that film. And I know it's Pierce Brosnan, I don't like him, but honestly, worth checking out if you want to see a really great female villain who is rounded and interesting and has a backstory.
Okay, and he doesn't just sleep with her. That's not part of it.
He falls in love with her, and I won't spoil it for you beyond that. But there is it's I don't think that film has issues apart from that. But I think there are things. It's fairly glossy 90s fare in other regards, but I do think that as a core element of the film, definitely.
Okay.
If you've got a spare couple of hours, definitely check it out. But what did you think? I wanted to ask you, sorry, very quickly, what did you think of Michelle Yeoh in Tomorrow Never Dies? Did you feel she was disposable?
I mean, I thought she was fine. I didn't her character wasn't particularly, and I love Michelle Yeoh in so many things, but I just, didn't really stick with me.
Fair dues.
I would just say I second everything Duncan said about World's Not Enough. I do think it's probably one of the most underrated Bond films, just in my humble opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've sold me on it.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's one of those, I don't want to build it up too much, but I can totally understand, like, obviously where you're coming from. And then, of course, that was the next one after Tomorrow Never Dies. So I can see why you would have passed it up. But definitely, when you do come back to your pilgrimage through the Bond series, bear that one in mind, because I think it's worth checking out.
Okay, I shall.
I would say, as a broad point, I wouldn't mind seeing a female villain at some point in a future Bond film, whether someone like Helena Bonham Carter, I think, would be quite awesome for the role, just because, she's so nuts at times. Or there's plenty of avenues. That's the glory of the series. It does have quite a wide scope of what you can tell story-wise.
For sure. I think there's lots of, as World Is Not Enough proved, there's lots of compelling reasons to make. I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to go, what story can we tell that's compelling with a female villain that isn't just, it's not a box ticking exercise. We're not doing it just to tick the box of female. We're doing it because actually there's a really great story to tell here and we really ought to tell it. Yeah. And I think they're doing. I don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they're not doing that. I think they are generally doing that, and I do think that they'll do that with No Time to Die as well. I think I hope the female characters in that are a bit more well-rounded. I mean, although they've obviously got what's her name? Sorry, from Knives Out.
Oh yeah, Ana de
Armas. Thank you. Sorry, and she sort of seems to have just a scene, basically, or like a part of the. She's in one part of it, and then she seems to disappear very quickly. I think, judging by the trailers, which is a shame. I mean, maybe that was last minute casting, and they just had to, they wrote something. I don't know, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I hope she's not, just because she's fantastic, and I'd love to see more with her in. But certainly, Lashana Lynch is a massive part of the film. And rightly so. Although I haven't really seen much with her in. I didn't see Captain Marvel, and I'm sure she's obviously done. She's a very prolific actor, but I'm not sure. But she seems really cool, like in interviews and stuff. She's got a very cool demeanor, so good for her.
Yeah. No, I think we may as well get to the juicy stuff. Predictions for? Well, I would say predictions. Who would you like to be the next Bond? Because I think of. I'll just say this. With the British tabloids, they do focus a lot, but generally, I think you may as well look into a crystal ball. That's about as accurate as you're going to get with predicting who the next Bond would be. Because I follow Calvin Dyson, who's a prolific YouTuber on Bond and other spy stuff. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, check his channel out. Hope he doesn't mind. Hope he likes my show.
Seconded. Yeah, no. Yeah. He and I are friends on Twitter. I think, and we passed each other the odd moment. But he's a lovely bloke, and yeah.
And I think he does claim a good point. Like when people think of the Bond to play Bond, they usually think of it who they want him to play now, not who they would want to play him in a few years' time. So I'm figuring, like, the favourite at the moment, according to Odds Checkers, is Tom Hardy. And I asked my brother who's one of his favourite candidates, but he's about 43. And I'm assuming the next Bond film won't be made until 2024 at the earliest. And by then, I would say he'd probably be too old. Someone like my preferred choice would have been Michael Fassbender a few years ago, but again, same issue. He'll probably be too old for the role now.
Jean, what do you think? I'm going to throw this one to you first, if that's all right.
Oh man.
You can say me. It's fine. Don't worry. No, I'm kidding.
Well, if you're too busy and unable to take the role.
Well, I am very, very busy. No, I'm kidding.
I did like a quick search just to kind of see options, and the one interesting one like kind of stood out to me is Regé-Jean Page, which I think, he's young, he's in his early 30s, but in a couple of years he'll be mid 30s, and you would definitely get the women to go see that movie. I can promise you that.
Yeah, Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you mentioned him because I've just started Bridgerton partly just to see what he's like as an actor, and I certainly wouldn't object. He's very, as you say, very handsome, physically very fit. He sort of can do. He can be quite rakish and charming at the same time as well. So he's got quite a few of the attributes you would expect from a Bond actor. Plus, he's not coming back for a second season of Bridgerton, so he's obviously probably thinking ahead beyond that TV series.
Yeah, and
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
oh yeah, and I was gonna say, like, when he hosted SNL, he clearly doesn't take himself too seriously, which was a nice thing to see after doing period drama, that he still can be funny and loose with himself.
Yeah, I mean, my experience of him has been through my wife's brief dalliance with Bridgerton, and every time I seemed to walk in the room, sex was going on. So I don't really know, as it did with Power and various other series, which I actually quite enjoyed. But yeah, no, it's so I haven't seen enough of him to kind of know what I think in that regard. But he certainly has the look and everything like that. Yeah, I mean, I get asked this question all the time, like incessantly. I got asked it when I did Emmerdale. I got asked, all the time. It seems to be, if you're a British actor, that's the role people, I guess, of a certain age and a certain type, but that's the role everyone wants to talk to you about. And as if you have some sort of insight into it, as if you're somehow bestowed with knowledge just because you're male and in a bracket of some sort. And I honest to goodness, I don't care. I mean, I have absolute faith that they will cast it right. I think they always have done anyway. And I don't think it's going to be anyone like Tom Hardy. Come on, are they really going to cast Venom as James Bond? No, because he brings too much baggage. You cannot, with archetypes, you cannot cast someone who's bigger than the role. And this is a problem with everything they've had with Batman. If you look at Ben Affleck and George Clooney and people like that, it was hard. I mean, they had script issues and stuff aside, but it's very hard for people to disassociate them from the role. I think Robert Pattinson's got an uphill struggle with that. I like the look of him and everything and all that, and I'm right behind him, but I sort of go, if you are bigger than the role, it brings problems, because you're bringing a lot of baggage in before anyone's even seen a frame of you as that character. And I think that's where people like Tom, the usual stable mates, Tom Hardy, Michael Fassbender, Benedict Cumberbatch at one point, Idris Elba et al. I think there's too much baggage they would bring it. And so as a casting director, purely thinking in that regard, I think that's where I would have to say it needs to go to someone who's lesser known. And that sounds like me banging my own drum, and I really don't mean it like that. But I think it has to be someone who is smaller than the role at the moment.
Yeah,
that's my take.
Because I'll go back to a point you said earlier in the podcast, Duncan, because you said that you're wanting Clive Owen for Bond back before Daniel Craig.
Back when I was 21, yeah.
Yeah, I admit I was in the exact same boat. I was thinking that Clive Owen would have been my pick, and then when Daniel Craig was cast, I didn't really know who he was at the time, but I thought give him a go. So I've come up with a little list. These are a few my personal picks. So since we've already done Regé-Jean Page, or however you pronounce it, I apologize to the actor if he ever listens to this. So here are a few of my picks. So Jack Lowden, Henry Golding, Dan Stevens, James Norton, and this will be a toss-up, but I'll probably go for Aidan Turner. So you can sort of see I'm going for actors in like their 30s. At the push, they'll be like early 40s by the time the next Bond should be around.
Mm.
So. And just for a fun point, because Jack Lowden, he's actually going out with Saoirse Ronan at the moment, so cast him, hope for a Bond Hannah crossover. I know, not very likely, but I just thought it'd be fun if it did happen. Yeah, I think as well, when you look at the history of Bond, though, generally the producers, they have for a long time who they have their eye on, because like they like Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton were both considered back when on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Pierce Brosnan was famously was going to take over for The Living Daylights, but his contract with Leamington Steel was renewed. And Barbara Broccoli said she had been thinking of like Daniel Craig for quite a long while, and obviously the other two options were Sam Worthington and Henry Cavill.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't know, do you? I mean, yeah, I mean, look, as someone who works in the industry and has some understanding of what casting is like, it's. Firstly, look, it starts with the story. What they have to decide what story they want to tell going forward, whether they're going to completely reboot, whether they're going to try and claim that this is the same guy, whether they're going to just switch into some sort of alternate universe episodic series, whether they're even going to keep doing it, who knows. But whatever they do, they have to decide on a roadmap and then decide how that's going to look. And even if they're just looking at one film, they have to decide what they want to do with it and the direction they want to start heading off in, even if just tonally, before they think about what story they want to tell. And then once all that's in the bag, then they can think about who they want to do it. And yeah, they may have their eye on people. I have no idea. I don't even think those particular people have any idea. I don't know. I met Debbie McWilliams, who's the casting director, once, and I, as I said, I've met Barbara Broccoli once, but you can't. I don't know. I don't know. It comes down to so much more than It's like a lot of people seem to lay at the feet of the actor the choices that are made by the producers. It's like people say, "Oh, I know that stupid Pierce Brosnan was an idiot" or whatever. And it's like he didn't write it. He didn't make any of those decisions. He was just asked to deliver what's on the page, and it's the same thing with Daniel Craig, and the same thing with all of them, and so whoever is coming out, I think they have to find the right guy to tell the story. That's it, and so it's who can predict that apart from them, who can really tell? So it's in the wind.
Yeah, I think admittedly, I because this is of someone who's a bit of an obsessive, thinking way too much. I think I can go down a real big rabbit hole of how many of the types of people I would want in a Bond film. I think, admittedly, my goal would be to direct a Bond film myself, but I don't think it's very likely I'll be doing Bond 26, barring I would become very big, very miraculously, or the producers end up just go hell with it, can't get him to do it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what's what? I didn't realize you directed, Kieran. What's your?
I've done 2 short films, and admittedly, my first one, I was influenced partly by the opening of Casino Royale.
Oh, what, the black and white stuff?
Black and white, shifting timelines, gangster film noir style.
I see.
And again, since I'm not above a bit of self-promotion, I will put a link in the description.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Sorry, because say, Jean, you've seen it, haven't you? My first short.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Was it good? Was it crap, Jean? You can tell.
It was wonderful.
There you go. Ringing endorsement. Fantastic.
There we go.
Excellent.
It did.
I'm looking at your IMDb. Look, I'm looking at your IMDb now, Kieran.
Yeah.
You can't escape. Which one? What, the hit?
Yeah.
The hit. Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Well done, mate. Well, no, look, anyone who goes out and makes films, I've said this a million times, I don't care if it's crap, like you went out and made a film, and that's to be lauded, because so many people don't get off the starting blocks. So many people don't take action. They don't marry action with the things they talk about. And that is, forget it. If you try, if you make the effort and you try and you put yourself out there, then that's all you can ask of anyone. So well done, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep going.
Yeah, I think it's said, just do it. You've got to have a bit of self-confidence, but for any potential filmmakers, because again, that was admittedly my issue was just getting that final push of self-confidence to do it.
hey, look, I'm an actor, and even though I seem to muster the requisite self-confidence, I still get huge imposter syndrome on pretty much anything I do. And that's just part of the course. But to understand that doesn't make you uniquely bad or different or weird or anything like that. That's quite normal. So you keep going, keep swinging for the fences, and don't stop.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll make my Bond film in the end somehow. Anyway,
excellent. Keep going.
Anyway, shall we say, because I think the other big decision for Bond film would be who to direct again. And admittedly, I think when Fukunaga, is it?
Beep. Fukunaga, I think.
Fukunaga.
Yes.
I think, like, remembering at the time, because I even wrote an article on like on the bookies odds, and he wasn't even on it. So again,
there you go. That's how much faith you should place in the sort of the bandied about names.
Yeah.
And all this.
Again, so I'll just do something similar. My few picks for director. I think Gareth Evans. I'm very careful not to say Gareth Edwards, because that's a different type of director. So director of the Rage, Gangs of London, big action director. J.D. Balliner from The Impossible, Monster Calls, The Orphanage, and a few. Again, Joe Wright, but that's mainly just because I really, really like Hannah.
Very cool. Did he direct? Who directed the film of Hannah?
Yeah, the film.
He directed the film. Yeah, that's really great. I think I saw part of the series, but I haven't really.
The second series is better than the first series. The first series sort of retreads the same territory as the movie.
Okay, fair enough. Well, look, lest we become two blokes just talking about our wonderful ideas. Gene, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think that's far more interesting.
I mean, honestly, I have no idea who should direct the next Bond movie. I mean, I don't know if you want to go with just British directors, or if you want to go something crazy like.
Because they have broken that. Like, they've had Commonwealth directors. They've had Mark Forster's the first non-Commonwealth director, and we've now got our first American director.
Oh yeah. All my only knowledge of Carrie's previous work is that 1 6-minute tracking shot from True Detective season 1. Like, that still to me is like everything he's ever done is that one shot. I mean, yeah, like, I don't know, something crazy, like get Bong Joon-ho to direct a James Bond movie. I mean, that would be insane, and I would definitely see that movie.
Yeah, I think that there are plenty of excellent candidates out there. I've got, again, I think I asked my brother, though. I think his choices were a bit predictable, and B, not likely to happen, because he said Danny Boyle or Christopher Nolan. We've already covered what that happened with Danny Boyle, and whilst Christopher Nolan's obviously a big Bond fan, I think his name just is too big for the franchise to be the director. It needs to be someone who's got a good body of work, but he can't be like that sort of superstar director. They have 100% creative control, because most of the time filmmaking, especially on that level, is a collaborative effort.
I think that's what happened with Danny Boyle, to be honest. I think he is the kind of person who is, it's unfilmed Danny Boyle, isn't it? And it's the same thing. Chris Nolan's the same. I think he's a heavily influenced by Bond, but also heavily influenced the Bond franchise with things like Batman Begins, because I think without that you don't necessarily get the tone of Casino Royale and stuff. So I don't, and I think these people are too obvious. Again, it's this bookie's favorite, and it's like, you're just naming famous British people at this point. You're not actually doing the work of thinking who could deliver something that would be desired, by the filmmakers. I mean, look, it behooves me to say, names of people I've worked with, you know, who I know would make fantastic directors and Bond franchises, you know, like Brad Watson, Mark Price, Jamie Stone. These are all people I've worked with who, I mean, Jamie, I think is a fantastic actor, fantastic director, who directed a thing I did called Erica, which was a sort of interactive movie. Someone like him, he has a great eye. Or my friend Brad, he directed. I've done a couple of things with him, and I know he gets it. He absolutely gets it from Doctor No to Spectre. You know, he totally understands that franchise, and I think people like him. I think you need someone who has that real. You either need someone who has that real oversight to understand the whole thing in its entirety, and then which buttons to press in order to make it new and exciting, or you need someone, you know, who is fresh and off the wall, but understands that they need to be tempered by the producers, because it is a rare example of actually not studio interference, but it's very much a producer-led franchise, and I think it's probably a rare example of that being a good thing. You know, so I you know, again, complete faith in their stewardship of it all, but I think it needs to be someone who really gets it. I think Sam Mendes got it generally. I know, say what you will about Spectre, but I do think he got it, and he knew that the line he had to sort of straddle. So yes, sorry, what were you say?
I was going to say, because I was just going to say, with like the Bonds series generally, it's always had like a history of keeping together a lot of the same people in the sort of in the like roles, like the stunt teams, and as you say, like the casting director's been the same person for quite a while, hasn't it? Sort of like they generally hire the same sort of people for, you know, various departments. So it's not, and like I think I could go back in the Bond history, like people like Peter Hunt went from editor to director. Same with John Glenn, second unit director and editor to full-on director.
That's right, yeah. Vic Armstrong, of course, who was doubling for Connery back in You Only Live Twice, and then ended up directing second unit on a bunch of stuff. It's a family man. In fact, he did I can't remember which podcast he was on, but he did a really great interview with him on something, and fascinating guy. I had lunch with him by accident on I was doing Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, and he was second unit on that, and we ended up had lunch, like sat opposite him, and I was kind of in awe because I was like, that's Vic Armstrong, wow, on the Richard Attenborough stage at Pinewood. And when he got up and left, someone said to me, you know who that was? And I went, yeah, Vic Armstrong. And they went, no, Kevin Costner. And I went, what? And they were like, yeah, Kevin Costner just sat down next to you and had his lunch. And I was like, really? So Vic Armstrong made me miss that I was sat next to Kevin Costner for about half an hour.
All right.
So there you go.
I thought for a second then you were talking about the TV series. No, you're talking about the 2014 film.
That's right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Actually, I did have my makeup artist on Erica went off to do the second series of Jack Ryan, the Prime series. So I have a link, even if it's a thin one.
That's it. I think for since, you know, this is just an excuse for me to just to fan wank, if you don't mind the expression. I'll just go through my choices for quickly for villain, Bond girl, and Bond song. So villain, I was thinking Shia Copley from District 9, but my stipulation would be he keeps his South African accent. Rose Williams as Bond girl, best known for Sanditon, and did an excellent horror film, The Power. And artist, just because I like them a lot, The Killers.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I spend way too much time thinking on this sort of stuff.
I think the thing you have to remember is just like, what story would that tell? Like who I mean, and I'm sure a great one, but you know, my thing is like,
yeah, I know it's the chicken and egg sort of thing, isn't it?
It is a bit, and I think people seem to sort of get lost in the reeds of casting, and it's kind of like, oh well, I like him in or her in that, and it's like, yeah, but what story, what Bond story are they going to tell with that person, you know? And that's, and it may be a great one, but you know, it's kind of let's think more along those lines. Yeah.
So, Millie, Jean, I feel we have been ignoring you a bit too much on this podcast. Have you got anything to add today?
I mean, I'll just say that it's always interesting to hear people who are like super engrossed in something or super enjoy something that, you know, kind of just passed me by. So it's been interesting to listen to you guys just talk about this and see how much you genuinely care about, you know, this series and what it meant to you. So that's been lovely.
Well, I mean, in terms of like, I think I globbed onto it in a way because I was quite ostracized when I was at school. I was the fat kid basically, and I got picked on a lot, and I felt outsidery and that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, I suppose there is that the obvious escapism, but I think I just sort of, it was I think also it was a desire to be an actor as well, and a kind of thing of going like, that looks like the coolest job in the world, and also I had this thing about like those movies look like the best movies to make in the world, and then when I actually got to be on one for a bit, I was like, yeah, these really are the best things ever to do. So that's kind of my, you know, it's the type of cinema I love to. I'd love to make, I think, is where that comes from. But for right or wrong, you know, I don't make any necessarily any comment on the message or indeed the politics of any of it. But I just in terms of like the aesthetics and the camaraderie that goes into making something like that is infectious and really wonderful to be involved in. So I think that's what, you know, it spoke to me on a level that, in a way, kind of, as other films have as well, that kind of dictated my path in life. So, yeah. Sorry. Sorry, the world.
Because Amelia, I've been rewatching some of your some of the Valverde videos, because you obviously, I think you've been itching to talk to Bond for a while, because obviously you when you're with your colleague, you normally talk, well, or at least you used to talk about things like Terminator, but Predator and RoboCop and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, those are what get the clicks. I mean, I wasn't necessarily itching to talk about James Bond. I kind of did it before, because you know, we were over with Oliver Harper, and I kind of felt like I shot my wad really on all that, and I kind of went, you know, as much as I still love it, and I'm still a giant fan of the franchise and everything, I just sort of thought, no, I don't want to be known as that guy what talks about James Bond and that you know, and sits around going, I was in a Bond film once. I sound like the old drunk at the end of the bar, you know. It's like, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be me as an actor who has my own career. And you know, it's funny because you introduced me as an actor / YouTuber, and I really am not. I sort of, yes, I do YouTube, and we enjoy doing it. And because Richard and I have been talking about where to take our channel and stuff, and it's kind of like we're neither of us career YouTubers. We're not, you know, we do it because we love chatting about film, and we have a sort of addiction to making each other laugh. So, and we have a great time doing it. But I think and we'll continue, you know, we want it to do well and all that kind of stuff, but we are filmmakers at the end of the day. Richard is a cinematographer and videographer. I'm an actor producer, so we kind of want to be that first and foremost, and we are, you know. I mean, that's certainly what I'm known for in the industry. It's just not, you know, in certain circles, I suppose. And I guess I have got a bit of a reputation as being the Bond guy, and he's the Star Trek guy. What are you going to do?
I think generally with our little Bond discussion, we have all covered quite a bit. So I'd say thank you both for coming up on board today. Obviously, because I just want to say, Duncan, if you just want to quickly plug your own short film with Richard Jackson, now's your chance.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, well, obviously Richard and I can be found over at Valverde Broadcasting. That's our YouTube channel. At the moment, we're sort of largely doing live streams, but we also do have pre-recorded content that's still on there, where we kind of talk about movies and probably make too many bum jokes or whatever, but that's what we do. And then yes, he and I recently shot a short film called Type Till You Bleed. It was written by Richard and shot by Richard, directed by Richard, starring me and Michael Geary, who's also another fantastic actor. And it's about a killer ex-Soviet computer, but that's all I'm saying. And you can there's a teaser on our channel that you can go check it out. But we are in the throes of post-production, so it's going off to we are very fortunate. We've got top Hollywood special effects artist Rob Myers doing the post-production on it. I just had to send him some money to buy a cockroach, a digital cockroach. So that's very cool. And he built Wakanda and built lots of amazing stuff for the Marvel universe, the Star Wars universe. So, but I did a video with him. It's on our channel. You can go check it out. He was involved. He did the Iron Giant. He's a massive awesome special effects artist and animator. So yes, sorry, my very long-winded plug for all of that. And of course, you can find me on IMDb and wherever else.
Yeah, and I'll add a load of these links onto the description when the video's up.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, cool. So, and to our listeners, hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you very much. Obviously, as I always say, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please subscribe. You know the drill. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.